Media MD, your fortnightly Doof Network dose of media that you have somehow missed. I'm Reuben Morehouse.
And I'm Elliot Diebold.
And this fortnight we are back to talk about Dollhouse, the TV show. So, I guess let's start with the plot summary. Dollhouse is a show that operates in a world where there is a urban legend of something called the Dollhouse. And everyone's already kind of heard of it by the start of the show, which is fun. I don't know. Is this a real urban legend that exists in like LA or?
I don't think so, but I do like how that's introduced. Like that's not really something that's addressed until I think it's like episode 5 or 6 where there's like a documentary about the Dollhouse, and it's just they're asking like people on the street
interviews.
And that's the way that they sell this idea to you that the Dollhouse is something that exists in the public consciousness in this universe.
Yeah, which is funny. I quite like it.
Yeah, and I like how they wait a little to introduce it. Like, they get you accustomed with the Dollhouse before they sort of say, okay, now just so you know, everyone knows about this too.
It's like a Bigfoot level. Anyway, the Dollhouse is a place where people are taken and their brains are wiped so they forget who they are, and then new personalities are implanted upon them so that they, with all of their very being, think that this is who they are. And what is this marvelous technology used for? Mainly prostitution, but some other stuff too.
I mean, pretty much.
Yeah. And so we follow a group of dolls, they're called, bodies that have different personalities implanted. Mainly one called Echo, through her various adventures, including adventures that run into an evil doll called Alpha, who had a mental breakdown where all of his personalities got implanted one over the other, which basically manifests itself as a kind of dissociative identity disorder kind of thing. And he's bad.
Well, so how far in the show did you get?
Okay, yeah. So I'm up to season 2, episode 10. Oh, I just finished episode 10.
Okay,
so I almost finished the entire show, but I didn't quite get there.
I just mentally realized, because those last 3 episodes, there's a lot of big stuff that happens, so I'm just making sure I know what you know and what you don't, I guess.
Yeah, so the last big twist that I found out is that the Dollhouse is kind of like The Matrix, where they are using all these bodies of people as computers, which is a weird twist, honestly.
Yeah, well, I mean, you know, it's a specific kind of people. So people who they really want to punish get sent to the attic throughout the whole show. And it's really, in season 2, episode 10, you find out what the attic is, and it's a sort of networked supercomputer parallel thing. Which I would think makes no sense, except the show has kind of spent 2 seasons establishing that they can program brains very easily, so it does kind of make sense that they could program, but like it's weird that it manifests as a Matrix thing on the inside. That doesn't really compute, but it makes for a good story, so I kind of give it a bit of a
it
pass.
does okay. I think I kind of felt like the plot went a bit off the rails in season 2, because one of the things that I liked about this show is it's kind of got this one, it's kind of it feels quite down to earth. There's one big technology that they've got, right? We're in something that is analogous to the present day, or, 5 or 10 years ago.
Yeah.
But they have this one big new technology, which is the ability to, replace people's brains with other people's brains, right?
Yeah.
And that's it. And all of the conflict and all of the plot comes from the implications of this one piece of technology, which I quite like. It's quite a nice way to do a show where it's just like, it's the world that we live in, except one thing's different, right?
Yeah, and I agree. There are a lot of sci-fi things that work like that. Like Orphan Black is another great show that did the same thing. There was cloning, and apart from that, everything's normal. It's just like one technological advancement, and that's the focus of the story, sort of thematically and everything.
Yeah, it lets it stay grounded. Which led to, in season 2, when they diverge from that a bit, more and more technology gets introduced as kind of other dollhouses around the world have different technological advancements. And then we get to episode 10 with the attic, which is basically just a whole other thing as well.
So I'd need to check, but I think it was like with 4 or 5 episodes to go. So right around where the attic episode is, that they found out they weren't going to get a season 3. And it's right around that time. There is a shift in the show because suddenly it's a bit like Serenity, the movie that finished Firefly. There's like a season and a half's worth of plot kind of compressed into a handful of episodes, and much like Serenity, like I don't hate it. I still think it's great, but there is a sense as you're watching it, like this is great, but like you can tell they're really just like bulldozing through it.
Yeah, I get that. I get that feeling because I kind of had that. I don't know. I think I liked the first season a lot more than I liked the second season.
I found that rewatching it the last few weeks as well. And sorry to interrupt, but like I think the other part of that for me is, as you mentioned, season 2 kind of has to diverge a bit more from that simple premise. And I think part of that is because of what they do to Echo at the start of season 2.
Yeah, I think this is one of my main things is Echo's just not as interesting in season 2 and doesn't have as much to do, right? I wrote down in my notes, I feel like Eliza Dushku hasn't had that much to Eliza Dush do in season 2. I thought I'd just say that stupid line that I wrote down.
I'm glad you worked it in organically.
Yeah, thanks.
It's sort of because it's really right at the start of season 2. They establish now that Echo is coming into her own and is becoming this thing that is sort of a big thread of the series, that she's a bit special. In that she sort of is starting she's sort of going through what Alpha did, but in a less psychotic way.
Yes,
and she's becoming this sort of conglomerate personality. And I think the problem with that then is it's harder for them to slide into the formula they'd established in season 1. So they kind of have to keep upping these stakes with other things because now Echo is a consistent character and they can't just wipe her every episode.
Yes, and honestly, like the kind of standalone, they were never really standalone, but the close to standalone episodes in season 1 were I think very fun and good self-contained, sci-fi-ish short stories. Whereas in season 2, because of what they were doing with Echo, that didn't really work. Like it just felt a bit contrived, some of the things that they had to do to get it to function.
Yeah, I'd agree. It's one of those shows where I feel like I would have loved it if we could have just gotten a few more seasons of like the original premise. Like there are some shows that, because all shows sort of have to evolve over time, and there's some shows that take too long to do it, and then there are like other shows, in Dollhouse, I think one of them where I'm like, I actually don't think you explored that original premise as much as you could have. And because it's a very flexible one, like she can be literally anyone. There are so many. It's a bit like the reason Stargate is said to have gone on for so long is because you could put anything you want on the other side of the gate. The reason Doctor Who's gone for 50 years is because you can put the TARDIS literally anywhere, and Dollhouse
or anywhen.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas Dollhouse had the same opportunity, and for various reasons didn't quite get to use it anywhere near its full potential.
Yeah, I would have said that they might have ran out of ideas, but there were some really great ideas in season 2. One of the ideas I really liked was an episode focusing around a senator who is kind of campaigning against the Dollhouse. Like he's found out the Dollhouse is real and he's campaigning against it. And what ends up being revealed, spoiler alert, is that this senator is actually a doll and is being used by the Dollhouse for some shenanigans, right?
I loved that twist. Like, did you see it coming at all?
No, I didn't. It was great. But you know what dragged it down is that was a great twist, and it had some really interesting character moments after he found out he was a doll, and he and Echo kind of allied themselves together and were having this kind of, fight for their lifestyle thing. But then it got a bit too tied back into the main plot and kind of got lost in the kind of muddy mess that portion of season 2 was.
Yeah, I agree. I think, I guess you haven't seen it, so I think the best part of season 2 in terms of the overall plot is sort of the ending when they actually wrap it up, because it's, it's when it all comes together, obviously. So it's like,
sure.
Because it doesn't do a terrible job of it, it's the best part.
Sure.
And I agree, season 2 suffers from kind of being caught in the middle of it. And with how they've set Echo up. I think, although there are obviously like still gems in season 2. You mentioned that senator one. If you're looking for a heart wrencher, the Sierra based episode early
that
on
was fucking tragic.
Is really full on.
It was a great episode.
It's
and
really
a great
powerful
standalone episode. And actually, this is another thing. I think season 2, the characters that were the most interesting were Sierra and Victor, right? Season 2 is really the Sierra and Victor show in a lot of ways because all the other characters just don't like it feels like, you know what it felt like? It felt like there were these great plot threads of, Echo and the agent whose name I've forgotten right now, Ballard, and Boyd, and all these characters who their plot threads were converging in a really interesting way, and that converging happened in season 1, episode 11, 12, whatever it is, the in air quotes finale of season 1.
Yes.
The finale that wasn't the actual finale. And we'll talk about that in a second. But yeah, so these plot threads all come crashing together in a really nice way. But then, the show's still going, so it can't be all fully resolved. And these characters are still in the show, and so these plot threads then kind of bounce away again and then kind of start turning back around and coming back together, and you're kind of like, well, I already saw that, and it was satisfying until the bit where it didn't resolve, and so now I'm just kind of not interested in these characters as much.
I think like Joss, Jed, and Marissa have all mentioned being a little bit surprised they got a season 2. Like Epitar 1, which, we will talk about for a while, I think, but it was almost set up as a bit of a series finale, like as a just in case.
You get that vibe, definitely.
Like it opens up season 2 in a really interesting way, but it also could have been the ending if it had needed to be.
Yeah. Yeah, and I honestly, I kind of feel like it would have worked better if it was, here's this season, and now Boyd and Ballard and Echo and probably Alpha, they're all gone, their plot's done. Let's do some new plots, and we can keep Topher around, and we can keep, some of the characters, but we'll focus on Sierra and Victor, because that's really what we want to do in season 2 anyway,
Yeah. I mean, but as I think I mentioned it in the prescription, but like the show was actually greenlit for Eliza Dushku, so that was sort of never going to happen.
Yeah, that's fair. And she was, I really, really loved her performance. I loved all of the performances.
I was about to say, like, especially everyone who played a doll, fucking nailed it. They
killed it. Yeah, even one that I didn't think I would find myself enjoying, who is the doll that played Melly / November / Millie was her actual name, Maggie something.
Yeah, something that
Melly. Sounds like Melly, but it's a bit different.
Was it Natalie?
No, it was started with an M, I'm pretty sure.
Okay. Anyway.
She was great. Like, I thought, I kind of didn't like her character, but then that was because her character was designed to specifically appeal to Ballard, and I was like, okay, this is pretty cool. Like, I thought all of the acting in this show was top-notch, especially from a lot of people who aren't in that much stuff. Like, I've been kind of checking out some of the actors and actresses, and they're just not in. They haven't been doing that much lately.
No, like Eliza Dushku herself has only been in a handful of things since that I've seen anyway. I've forgotten the name of the woman who plays Sierra. Because she shows up for an episode or two in just about every sci-fi show ever. She's like I'm beginning.
She's great. She's so good.
Yeah, but I'm beginning to think there's some sort of like law against creating a sci-fi show that she doesn't at least have a cameo appearance in.
Yeah.
But for some reason, I've never seen her really be a regular in anything since Dollhouse. And then of
she's
course
got
the guy
such
plays
a great
Victor.
Australian accent as well. Oh yeah.
The guy who plays Victor is fantastic. I'm not going to try and say his name because I'll get it wrong.
Yeah.
But
a lot of hard to pronounce names in this show.
Like his impressions of other characters are phenomenal.
Oh my god, there's that episode where Topher puts his own brain in Victor's body, and this actor perfectly nails Topher's voice, his mannerisms, to the extent that I actually, when I first saw it, thought that they had redubbed his mouth movements with Topher's voice because it was so on point.
Yeah. So I mean, his first name's Enver, like the actor. I feel comfortable saying that part. And yeah, he really nailed it. So yeah, good performances all around. But yeah, why don't we talk about the Epitar episode that you saw? Yeah.
So I kind of messaged you as I was watching this episode, being like, at the start, of course, my message was, is this the wrong show? Like, is this a different show? Because it's very different. It's stylistically different. It's all different characters until we get to about 15 minutes in where we see, what's her name?
Whiskey,
that's it. And she obviously serves as a conduit to start doing some flashbacks where we see the other characters and kind of some situations. But even in those flashbacks, these characters are 2 or 3 years advanced from where we know them in the show, and so they're all quite different. They're at different stages of their life.
Yeah.
I don't know if I liked this finale or not. I liked it. I probably would have liked it more if it didn't have the flashbacks, which is a weird thing to say. Like, it felt like a kind of self-contained story set in an alternate future of the TV show Dollhouse, rather than an episode of the TV show Dollhouse.
I mean, well, yeah, it's interesting because it was made, as we sort of said, it was made on as a potential finale. This is actually, I think, really the episode where Jed and Marissa really took the wheel for a bit. It's sort of the episode I point to as like the thing that made me realize that Jed and Marissa are like, really, really talented. Specifically them. And in fact, the song that plays at the end of this is one of my favorites of all time, and it was composed and sung by them. But yeah, like it feels weirdly out of place, and in fact, it never actually aired. It's only on like the DVD copies,
which is so strange. I mean, I get it, but the interesting thing is, when I first watched it, I had the view of, this is a kind of like alternate universe of what could happen in the future of this technology. That's kind of a cool angle. But season 2 kind of explicitly starts going down the path of, hey, this is where we're going, so get ready, world. Like, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know how I feel about it. I felt like the fact that season 2 led more into that path kind of retroactively made the finale a little bit more interesting, but I think I would have liked it more if it wasn't tied into Dollhouse, honestly.
Well, I think like what makes the concept of Epitaph like really sort of stand out is it didn't air, and like that would change your understanding of season 2. I think a lot. I think a lot of every time I watch season 2, so much of it is framed from the understanding of where things are, maybe going to end up in what we saw in Epitaph 1. And so you're just sort of sitting there and you're like, how did people cope with season 2 not knowing this? Is it better? Is it worse? It would be a very different experience.
Yeah, because there are scenes of... let's talk about one specific example, which is Adele DeWitt, her name is, the manager of the Dollhouse. She is the one that... She has this moment where she betrays Topher by taking a piece of technology that he's developed that he realizes is a bad idea, and taking it to the Dollhouse executives in what is a betrayal of Topher, and it obviously comes across that way, but we as the audience have the context that this betrayal is the thing that sets what happens in the Epitaph of season 1 in motion, right? Like, that's the context to this betrayal, and so it makes it so much worse because we know Topher is right.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, there's not many points in the series where you get to look to Topher as the moral high ground.
I know, right?
So
what a great guy he is, though. I love him.
He's a lot of fun. I mean, it's just I love the concept of Epitaph 1. Just as like, what a ballsy decision to use for like a show going forward, to almost immediately show the end of your story and then try and continue to tell that story. And I mean, obviously we've sort of talked about how in season 2 they maybe struggled at times with coping with that, but it's such an interesting concept. Like, you got to give props for what an amazing idea it is.
I do think it's a baller move, but I kind of think it is what helped lead to this feeling of the ending of season 1 feeling unresolved. And even if you imagine the Epitaph, instead of being the finale of season 1, being the first episode of season 2, it would change the feeling significantly. It would feel like, okay, the ending we got to season 1 is actually the end of that bit, and now we can jump into the next part of the story. I don't know. It kind of left a weird vibe in my mouth of even just the moment of finishing, the end of season 1 before the Epitaph. I don't know. It was like episode 11 or something, episode 12.
The sort of main season, I guess.
Yeah. And thinking, wow, okay, like things just went down, but Alpha's still out there and stuff at the Dollhouse hasn't really been resolved. Oh, okay, there's another episode. Let's go into it. And now I can see, okay, well, we're almost there, but we need a little bit more resolution. And then you start up the episode and it's just not, it doesn't deal with that at all. And I'm kind of like, okay, but I still feel like there's, another episode's worth of wrap up that needs to happen here before I feel like the season feels concluded. And, the epitaph obviously is doing what it's doing, but it's not doing that. Doesn't set out to do that.
I do like what you just said about it, like being the start of season 2 rather than the end of season 1, because I agree with everything you just said, but as well, so much of some of the early twists and plot developments, as we've already talked about, are established in Epitar 1.
Yeah,
as one simple example, Epitar 1 is the episode that first introduces us to the fact that Ballard is going to become Echo's handler, and then the first episode of season 2 is basically showing us how that comes about. And this is one of those things where it completely changes your watching of that episode, because you're seeing this and you're sort of trying to follow as it's going, being like, okay, so this is how he's going to end up being her handler. And so you're right, like it's doing more for season 2 than it is for season 1. So I can see what you're talking about.
Like Boyd and Dr. Saunders having a romantic relationship, or like Adele and Topher seemingly having a maybe romantic relationship or something, while Topher's kind of loses the plot and goes real off the deep end.
Well, it's more of a mother-son. Like she takes on a maternal role.
That's fair.
And I think like it's very interesting because she's not quite the villain of season 1, but she's certainly not a sympathetic character for the most part. But she does do a heel turn in season 2. Yeah, and Epitar, again, is what lays the seeds for that, because you see her helping the dolls defend the house in Epitar 1, and so you sort of come into season 2 with this concept that eventually at some point she's going to switch to their side, and I think they do have fun with that, because she goes full-on villain halfway through the season, and you're like, oh god, what's happening?
It does feel like it should just have been the first episode of season 2. I don't know. I feel like I've been pretty negative on the show, but I have really enjoyed it. I really, really enjoyed the first season with a moderately disappointing conclusion, and I am enjoying the second season, and I expect the conclusion to be great based on the amount of hype up that you've been doing for it, Elliot, so don't let me down.
I said it reminds me of Serenity, which is good, but it feels rushed.
Yeah.
I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on it later. We'll have to talk about it at some point.
Well, at our next annual checkup, I suppose.
Yeah.
Now, I know one of the reasons you brought this up was because on our other show, Deep Impact, we're at a point where we're talking about some interesting ethical questions that kind of mirror some of those that are, danced around in Dollhouse.
Yes, the discussions we've been having over there were very much an influence for this pick finally coming about. And yeah, you're right. We sort of have to do this. So I think we will dive into the ethics of the Dollhouse.
So are you pro-Dollhouse or anti-Dollhouse?
So, look, it's interesting because the Dollhouse Adele sells to people, which is where the dolls are consenting people who come out better for it.
Yep, it's like a way of serving time in prison without having to remember it.
Yes, which I do not have a problem with that concept. I actually think there's some benefit to that, except for the fact that that's not at all what it is. Like Adele's concept of consent is horrifically underdeveloped. She's like, they all volunteered for this. And it's like she basically holds them at gunpoint and gets them to volunteer. Or like, Sierra was not a volunteer, okay?
Yes.
They were misled, sure, but yeah.
I'm totally with you there. And then the other thing is that they volunteer to be kind of used for whatever for 5 years, which, okay, they've consented to that, hypothetically, fine. But then the Dollhouse basically just does whatever the fuck they want with them, with no guarantee of actually letting them go at the end of the 5 years. Like, some people will get addict, some people will go out and, like, kill missions and end up dying. Like, they basically just, once they have them sign the dotted line, do whatever the fuck they want with them, really, with no idea of actually having them returned at the end of the 5 years.
Yes, and because there's that sort of lack of accountability. There's stuff like where they threaten to send Echo to the attic, and it's like, so are you going to give her back in 4.5 years then?
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Like, but again, if this was sort of a more public thing and there was an accountability there, you could see it. Sort of. You could see a situation where it works, and I think like because the
Definitely
best example is Victor, and God, I hope I'm not jumping here, but like how much do you know about Victor's civilian identity?
So he's a soldier, right? He's a soldier with PTSD. And Victor I've gotten past the episode where Victor is released from the dollhouse.
Okay,
His
good.
time comes to an end, and he goes back into the real world. And so seemingly Victor is an ideal case for this is what the dollhouse could be in a purest sense, right?
Yes.
He's got PTSD. They bring him in. They say, hey, we'll cure your PTSD. We'll take 5 years of your life, and then you'll be able to go back to living a normal life.
Well, it's not just a normal life. That's the thing. They set you up very well because
true.
like it's a very profitable business, and that is one thing that they don't quite stinge out on is they do actually set these people up pretty well.
Yep,
and regularly check in on them for selfish reasons as much as humanitarian ones. But you're right. Like Victor is a great case. It's someone he's got like this condition, and they're saying, "Hey, we'll pay you and we'll fix your condition in exchange for this." Seems like a pretty good offer.
And it'll take 1 second. You won't. You'll close your eyes. You'll open your eyes. It'll be 5 years later, and we're done. And it's good deal. I would take that deal.
Well, that's the thing. Like I think there are a lot of people who have like mental issues who would probably like be very interested in a deal like that. It makes a lot of sense. Except he does get out, and it doesn't really seem like they fixed his problem very well because he still suffers from PTSD a little bit during that episode. And I guess it comes into the limits of science or whatever. But I was sort of like, I don't really feel like they met their end of the bargain, which I think really sells this idea of the dollhouse being shit, because I can't think of a single person who was there genuinely willingly. Like, the only other person whose origin story we know is Alpha, and he was a, prisoner on death row that they were basically experimenting on. So, that's not very good either.
We've got November / Melly / Maggie. She seemed to do okay in the dollhouse.
Well, so hers is an interesting one because it seems like, and I might be wrong, but her daughter, I think, died.
Yeah.
And she was grieving, and that's what sent her to the dollhouse, which is, I mean, did she have them wipe some of the grief? Because that's kind of dark.
Right.
The only other thing is like, I want it to be 5 years, except she doesn't experience the 5 years, so she's just going to, like, maybe they accelerated that in the imprint that they put on her at the end. It was sort of like she had finished grieving. I don't know.
Yeah, who knows? I do think the ideal of the dollhouse has some interesting merit, but implementation needs work, I would say.
The theory has some merits, but the execution leaves a lot to be desired.
Yeah. All right, well, we solved that ethical problem.
Well, I think, to sort of tie it a bit more into the Deep Impact discussion, would this be more or less okay if they were robots?
More okay, because robots don't have souls.
Okay. I don't think we're going to get anywhere on this one.
I don't think so.
Where we ended up in fact.
It's Westworld all over again. Let's be honest. They're just robots. And honestly, I feel bad because a few times in my head I thought of the dolls as robots, which I know they're not. Like, there were times when they're being threatened with a gun, and I'm like, "Why do you care if you get shot? You're a robot." And then I'm like, "Oh wait, no, you're not a robot. You're still a human body."
Because it's basically the same thing. Anyway, that's fine. Do we have anything more to say about Dollhouse?
I really liked it. I know we've talked about a lot of things that I like, gripes that I had with it, but I've been really enjoying it. I'm going to finish it off, and I'm giving it an 8.5 out of 10.
Oh, that's pretty good. I would agree. It kind of feels like some of the things I like the most, it feels like we spend the most time talking about the negatives, and I almost feel that's because it's like, when it's so close to being perfect, you focus more on just why it wasn't when you come at it critically. Whereas, there are things, if you don't like them as much, you sit there and try to find the good and talk about that. Whereas the good things, it's just like, this is great.
I cared about this show a lot, right? Which is why I care about the things that annoyed me about it.
Yeah, exactly.
Speaking about caring about a show a lot and finding things that annoy you about it, I'm bringing a show to you today called The Boys.
I've heard of this one, yes.
It's impossible that you haven't, because I'm pretty sure Amazon spent, let me look this up. Yep, $1 bajillion advertising it.
I mean, honestly, I think most of my exposure to it has just been as somebody who is like reading Ward as it's coming out.
Right.
Like, I don't know which I saw more of, posts comparing the boys to Worm or posts complaining that everyone's comparing the boys to Worm.
Yes, because it is a superhero deconstruction, which of course means that it gets compared to Worm in the circles that we run in, of course.
Yes, I mean, gritty. I saw a lot of people complaining that just because it's gritty superheroes, it doesn't mean it's Worm.
Yeah. Yeah, it's what if superheroes, wait for it, weren't good? Whoa!
Also, it is Worm.
Yeah, or the entirety of the DC expanded universe.
Yeah,
but no, but it is interesting. And the interesting thing about it is that this is really a show about. I'm going to say it. It's a show about capitalism and why capitalism is bad. It's all about like the image and the PR industry that goes into making these superheroes and kind of why that fucks them up so much, I would say.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think it ever is inherently too political, but it does make some fun anti-capitalist statements, and it has a lot of kind of contemporary political allegories, which I think are also quite fun.
Yeah, okay. I mean, like, yeah, that sounds good and interesting. I'm always down for something that kind of points out the problems of late-stage capitalism.
Yep. It's great acting. It's a funny show. Although there are a few things that I don't know, a few bits about it that kind of niggled at me a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
There is one character in particular who is introduced to us doing some sick shit, but then after that, they're kind of just a joke the whole time, and it's really weird. Like, you first meet this character and they are scum, and then they're just like a joke for the rest of the show, and a joke that you kind of can't laugh at because you were introduced to them doing sick shit. So you're like, I don't know how to feel about this.
Yeah, okay. I guess
we can talk about that later, though.
Yeah, I guess I'll see where I land on all that. But I mean, that's definitely a risk you can run with this sort of stuff, right?
Yeah. Yeah, well, definitely. I do really like the plot of this show as well. I think it goes in some very interesting directions, and the main villain, I'll say, the villain of the show, is genuinely terrifying, and the actor pulls it off in a way that is pretty incredible. So that's all I'm going to say about it. The Boys, and yeah, it's based on a comic book, of course, because it's a superhero thing.
Well, yeah, I guess it has to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I've just looked it up, and so there's 8 episodes. So
yeah, it's quite a short little thing. But each one is maybe an hour long, so I guess not that short.
No, I'm keen for this. Like this sounds like, I guess obviously, I don't think unless you're trying to avoid it, nobody's wanting for superhero content these days. Yeah. But there's some really, really good stuff that's come out of that, and this seems like it's hopefully fitting into that category.
Yeah, I mean, the original comic came out as a kind of response to superhero comics, and this definitely feels like it's a response to superhero films.
That's nice. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, it definitely it feels like the right time for this show to have come out. It's great.
Cool.
And that's The Boys. We'll check back in a fortnight to see what you thought of it, I suppose.
Yes. But if you can't wait that long to share your thoughts on The Boys, you can hit us up on Twitter, which is @mediamdpodcast.
Indeed. If you're enjoying Media MD, this very show, why not leave us a review on iTunes? We see all the reviews that are left, and we really appreciate them. So why not do it?
And on Stitcher now. The Doof Media Network has just realized that Stitcher has reviews, and so we're also getting those now. It's very exciting.
Yep.
Also, obviously, now that we're part of the Doof Network, you can support us at patreon.com/doofmedia.
Yes.
There's a bunch of really cool perks that you get that relate to all the shows on the Doof Network. If you donate at this level.
Let me give you listeners a hot tip, because there's a bit of a scam going on with the Patreon at the moment, the Doof Media Patreon, where the best perk that you can actually get is the $1 perk.
Mm-hmm.
So don't tell anybody, but if you back us at $1, you get access to what is, in my opinion, the best perk on the whole dang thing, which is access to the Doof Media Discord, which is where a lot of great discussion happens. We'll be discussing things for MediaMD, like The Boys, like Dollhouse, like whatever else we talk about.
So there's a specific MediaMD channel on that server. Reuben did a bunch of live reactions to Dollhouse in there. I'll probably do the same thing for The Boys if there's interest.
Ooh, that sounds fun.
So it's a great way to sort of be in more immediate contact with us.
Yeah, and kind of bounce ideas around with us about the content that we're talking about.
Yes.
So links to do all of those things can be found on doofmedia.com, which is also the new place to find clues for the MediaMD ARG. You can help us figure out just who is Dr. MD and why did he fall asleep?
For a little while.
Elliot, why don't you tell the listeners this fortnight's clue?
Receiver.
Receiver, and we'll see you next fortnight.